Chapter 2. James A. Garfield.
The president who survived the bullets, but not the treatment. When Americans think about presidential assassinations, the names Lincoln and Kennedy usually come to mind first. But between those two tragedies lies another story, a story that is often forgotten. Yet many historians consider it one of the most tragic chapters in American history, because this president didn't die immediately after being shot. Instead, he spent nearly 3 months fighting for his life, and according to many experts, the bullets may not have been what killed him. The year was 1881. The United States was rapidly changing. Railroads connected distant cities, industries were growing, new inventions were transforming daily life, and at the center of this changing nation stood a newly elected president named James Abram Garfield. Garfield's rise to power was remarkable. Born into poverty in Ohio, he worked tirelessly throughout his life. He had been a teacher, a lawyer, a Civil War general, and eventually a respected politician. Unlike many politicians of his era, Garfield was widely admired for his intelligence. When he became president in March of 1881, many Americans believed he would help modernize the government. But while Garfield focused on leading the nation, another man was becoming dangerously obsessed with him. His name was Charles Guiteau. Guiteau was an unstable drifter with grand dreams and very little success. He constantly jumped between jobs, he struggled financially, and he believed he was destined for greatness. At some point, Guiteau convinced himself that he had helped Garfield win the presidency. He had delivered a few political speeches during the campaign and exaggerated their importance in his own mind. Soon he began demanding a government position as a reward. Specifically, he wanted a prestigious diplomatic appointment. But there was one problem. No one in the administration took him seriously. His requests were repeatedly ignored. Weeks turned into months. His frustration grew. The rejection became an obsession. Eventually, Guiteau convinced himself that God wanted him to remove Garfield from office. In his distorted view, assassinating the president would somehow save the Republican Party. The idea sounds absurd today, but in Guiteau's mind, it made perfect sense. For weeks, he followed Garfield, watching, waiting, studying his movements. Security around presidents in the 19th century was minimal. There were no Secret Service agents surrounding the president, no metal detectors, no armored vehicles. Presidents often moved freely among the public. That made Garfield vulnerable. On the morning of July 2, 1881, President Garfield arrived at the Baltimore and Potomac Railroad Station in Washington, D.C. He was preparing for a trip. His mood was cheerful. He planned to visit family and enjoy a brief break from work. As Garfield walked through the station, Guiteau was already there, waiting, a revolver hidden in his pocket. At approximately 9:30 in the morning, Guiteau stepped forward, then fired. The first shot grazed the president's arm, the second struck him in the back. Garfield collapsed to the floor. Panic erupted throughout the station. People screamed. Passengers ran for cover. Others rushed toward the fallen president. Guiteau made little effort to escape. He was quickly arrested. As authorities dragged him away, he reportedly remained calm, almost proud of what he had done. Meanwhile, doctors raced to save Garfield. At first, there was reason for hope. The president was alive. The bullets had not immediately killed him. Many believed he would recover. But medicine in the 1880s faced a serious problem. Doctors still had a limited understanding of infection control. Although scientific discoveries about germs already existed, many American physicians had not fully adopted sterile medical practices. As doctors searched for the bullet inside Garfield's body, they repeatedly inserted unsterilized fingers and instruments into the wound, again and again and again. Instead of helping, they introduced dangerous infections. Garfield remained bedridden for weeks. Newspapers published daily updates. The entire nation followed his condition. Americans prayed for recovery. Crowds gathered outside locations where news bulletins were posted. Every small improvement became a headline. Every setback created new fear. As the weeks passed, Garfield grew weaker. His weight dropped dramatically. The infection spread throughout his body. Summer turned into autumn. Still, the president fought to survive. His suffering lasted nearly 80 days. Finally, on September 19, 1881, James Garfield died. He had been president for only a few months. The nation was devastated. Church bells rang across America. Flags flew at half-staff. Citizens mourned another fallen leader. Yet, as medical science advanced in later decades, historians began asking an uncomfortable question: could Garfield have survived? Many modern experts believe the answer is yes. Some estimates suggest that with modern treatment and proper infection control, the president would likely have lived. In other words, the gunshots wounded him, but the medical care may have doomed him. It remains one of the most heartbreaking what-if stories in American history. The assassination also produced major political changes. Americans became increasingly frustrated with a government system that rewarded political supporters with jobs. Guiteau's obsession with receiving a government position highlighted serious flaws in the system. In response, lawmakers pushed for reforms. The result was the Pendleton Civil Service Act of 1883. The law changed how many federal jobs were awarded and helped create a more professional government workforce. Once again, tragedy had reshaped the nation. One president dead, one assassin imprisoned, and another painful lesson written into American history. But the cycle of violence wasn't over. Only 20 years later, America would lose yet another president, and this time the killer would strike in the middle of a crowded public event, a place where thousands of people had gathered to celebrate progress and optimism, a place where no one expected death to be waiting.